The empire that could not break him. The year is 1609. The Spanish Empire stretches across oceans, its fleets heavy with silver, its banners planted on continents, its armies undefeated in the New World. From Madrid to Mexico City, its authority seems absolute. But deep in the mountains of Veracruz, something unthinkable is happening. A man born into African royalty, now enslaved in a foreign land, has vanished into the wilderness. And he has not fled alone. He is building something. Not a hiding place, not a rebellion destined to fail, but a state. His name is Gaspar Yanga. For nearly 40 years, he will defy the Spanish crown ambushing its soldiers, outmaneuvering its commanders, and forcing one of the most powerful empires on earth into a negotiation it never wanted to sign. This is the story of the African prince who turned resistance into sovereignty and compelled an empire to recognize freedom. Prologue echoes in the mountains of Veracruz. In the dense, mist-covered mountains of Veracruz, Mexico, a story of defiance once shook the foundations of a global empire. It is here, far from the royal courts of Europe and the gilded cathedrals of New Spain, that an African prince transformed exile into sovereignty. His name was Gaspar Yanga, a man who refused to accept bondage as destiny and forced the Spanish crown into a negotiation it never wished to acknowledge. This is not merely a tale of rebellion. It is a story of statecraft, strategy, and survival. It is the story of how one Maroon community carved out freedom from the machinery of empire and compelled Spain to legitimize it. Origins: a prince in chains. According to colonial accounts, Yanga was born in West Africa, possibly of royal lineage. Though precise details of his early life remain obscured by time, oral traditions describe him as a nobleman before he was enslaved. Like countless others during the height of the transatlantic slave trade, Yanga was forcibly transported across the Atlantic to New Spain, the vast Spanish colony that included present-day Mexico. In the late 16th century, Veracruz was a crucial port in Spain's imperial network, linking American silver to European markets. Enslaved Africans labored in sugar plantations, cattle ranches, and urban centers, forming a vital, yet brutalized, component of the colonial economy. But Yanga would not remain part of that system. The escape, birth of a Maroon state. Around 1570, Yanga escaped slavery with a group of followers into the rugged highlands near Veracruz. These mountains, dense with forest and broken by ravines, offered natural fortifications against pursuit. Over time, the escaped Africans established a Maroon settlement known, in Spanish, as a palenque. From this hidden stronghold, Yanga and his people built an autonomous community. They cultivated crops, raised livestock, and formed a defensive militia. Their settlement was not a temporary refuge. It was an emerging state structured, disciplined, and guided by a leader who understood both African political traditions and the realities of Spanish colonial power. Colonial anxiety, a threat to the empire. By the late 1500s, Yanga's community had grown in size and confidence. Spanish authorities became increasingly alarmed. Runaway slaves from plantations were reportedly finding their way to Yanga's enclave. Trade routes were disrupted. Caravans transporting silver and goods through the region were occasionally attacked. For colonial officials in Mexico City, this was more than banditry, it was insurrection. The idea that enslaved Africans could not only escape but organize a lasting, self-governing settlement threatened the ideological foundations of colonial rule. The Spanish crown depended on hierarchy, racial order, and absolute authority. Yanga's Maroon state undermined all three. War in the Highlands, 1609. In 1609, the Spanish colonial government launched a military expedition to crush the settlement once and for all. Armed soldiers, accompanied by indigenous allies, marched into the mountains, determined to eradicate what they viewed as a dangerous rebellion. But Yanga was no ordinary fugitive leader. He deployed guerrilla tactics, ambushes, strategic retreats, and exploitation of the terrain. His fighters knew every ridge and ravine. Spanish troops, accustomed to open field engagements, struggled in the unfamiliar and hostile landscape. The campaign proved costly and inconclusive. The Maroons could not be easily subdued. Instead of decisive victory, Spain found itself locked in a drawn-out and expensive confrontation. Diplomacy from the shadows. Recognizing the stalemate, Yanga made a calculated move. He proposed negotiations. His terms were bold: freedom for his people, recognition of their settlement, and autonomy under a local African leadership, while nominally acknowledging the authority of the Spanish crown. It was a masterstroke. Yanga framed his demands not as rebellion, but as loyalty, conditional loyalty. In exchange for peace, his community would cease raids and maintain order in the region. For Spain, exhausted by conflict and wary of inspiring further uprisings, compromise became pragmatic. The treaty, sovereignty secured. In 1618, after years of tension and intermittent conflict, Spanish authorities formally recognized the Maroon community. The settlement was granted legal status and later became known as San Lorenzo de los Negros today, the town of Yanga in Veracruz. Though the full details of the agreement remain debated among historians, the outcome was unmistakable. A formerly enslaved African leader had compelled one of the most powerful empires in the world to legitimize his people's freedom. It was, in effect, one of the earliest officially recognized free black communities in the Americas. Political genius. Yanga's leadership. Yanga's achievement was not merely military, it was political. He balanced resistance with negotiation, autonomy with strategic compromise. He understood that absolute defiance might lead to annihilation, while calculated diplomacy could secure permanence. His leadership transformed a fugitive camp into a recognized municipality. In doing so, he pioneered a model of Maroon sovereignty that would echo throughout the Americas, from Brazil to the Caribbean. Legacy: the first free town. Today, the town of Yanga stands as a testament to that legacy. Streets and monuments honor the man who once defied empire, yet his story remains less known than it deserves. In an era when colonial powers reshaped continents through conquest and exploitation, Yanga demonstrated that resistance could succeed, not merely as rebellion, but as institution building. His community survived not because it avoided confrontation, but because it mastered it. Epilogue: Defiance as Destiny. The story of Gaspar Yanga challenges simplified narratives of colonial history. It reveals that even within systems designed for absolute domination, cracks could form. Through those cracks emerged leaders who redefined what was possible. In the shadowed mountains of Veracruz, an enslaved prince became a nation builder. A Maroon settlement became a sovereign town. And an empire, however reluctantly, was forced to recognize freedom born from defiance. Gaspar Yanga did not simply escape slavery. He rewrote the balance of power,